Okay, Elly, do you want to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, my name is Elly Raskin. I was born here in the Calgary General Hospital, raised on a farm in Rumsey. Now, a lot of people don't know where Rumsey is, but it's 30 miles north of Drumheller. And I was raised on the farm, and then I went to school out on the farm, and then my parents opened a general store. My father was one of the first homesteaders in Rumsey. And then I farmed with my brother, and we had a trucking business as well. And then one day in February, a friend of mine and I decided we would go to Rocky Mountain House and pick up a load of posts for the farm. We run into a friend of mine, Bill Olive. He had just joined the Army. This is in Big Valley. I run into him, and he had his uniform on, and he started telling me all about the Calgary Tank Regiment. So it was 40 below weather. So I thought, I'd been thinking about joining the Army because friends of mine had joined. So we stopped in Stettler, and the first thing I knew, they had accepted me, and I was in the Calgary Tank Regiment in B Squadron.
And how old were you at that time?
21 years old. I had just turned 21. That was in December, and that was February that we went there. The first part of February, that's when the regiment was mobilized. So my friend wanted to join too, but he wore glasses, and in those days, anybody that wears glasses was not acceptable. So we went back to Rumsey, and I told my mother and father, I've just joined the Army. Oh boy. My mother cried all night long, and the next morning, the train picked me up, and I was on my way to Calgary.
That must have been a difficult goodbye.
It was a difficult goodbye, and we did a little bit of training and got ready in Calgary, and then just before we went to Camp Borden, I got leave back to home, and then went for a few days, and then from there we went to Camp Borden, where we trained. We left in March for Camp Borden. I think that's the right time. And we trained, and I trained people how to drive trucks because nobody knew how to double clutch. You've heard of double clutching.
I have.
Okay.
Do you want to explain it?
Well, to shift gears, if you didn't double clutch, you ripped the gears out. So I had to teach everybody how to double clutch when they were driving a truck.
This is different than a car.
Oh, definitely, yes. So, and
was your primary role then as a teacher?
Yes, yes, it was, to teach them how. And also, I trained driving tanks. And that was I forget the name of the tank, but it was the First World War tank, and I was a driver in the tank.
So prior to arriving in England, your only experience in tanks then was within World War I vehicles?
Yeah, because that's the only tanks there were at the time. So then we left we got leave back again to Canada, to
Calgary?
To Rumsey. And we went, had leave there, and then we went back, and then we left from, I'm pretty sure it was Montreal that we left from, because I remember we paraded through the streets of Montreal. And I know that a lot of people don't know this, but Trudeau and a couple of other guys rode up on motorcycles just before we left by the train with swastikas on them.
Is that right?
Of course,
How did you know it was him? Or did you know him from
We
that?
didn't know, but we were told it was him. He was just a youngster then.
Do you remember the incident?
They just drove up by the trains
Is that right?
with motorcycles. That's when we were on our way overseas.
Not understanding, I'm assuming, what they were symbolizing.
Yeah. So, anyway, we landed in Greenock, Scotland on July the 1st, 1941.
And from there, you went to Aldershot?
No, we went to, no, we didn't go to Aldershot. We went to, oh boy, we were on the, in Sussex there, I think it was, I forget the name.
So tell us about some of your memories of your time spent in England.
One of my greatest memories was meeting my wife in London. I met her in the Astoria Dance Hall. I met her in, I think it was September of 1941. October or September, I think it was.
And were you able to spend a significant amount of time with her?
No, just a few days. I was there. You see, my first leave I spent was in Scotland, in Glasgow and Edinburgh. And then we got another leave, and I spent just a weekend. And if I wouldn't have, it was a strange thing. I was supposed to go the weekend, 2 weekends before to London, but somebody in, I don't know, I did something and I got CB'd for a weekend. I don't know what I can't remember what I did, but it was something, a fellow by the name of Tom Ward. I don't know if you heard of him. He was a captain in our regiment. And so I got CB'd, so I couldn't go till the next weekend. And so if I would have went the first weekend, I wouldn't have met her. But anyway, I met her.
That was good luck.
It was good luck, and I met her at a dance hall, and we just saw eye to eye, hit it off, and that was it. She would come down and visit me in Seaford, because that's where we came to from. You see, we were over on a plain, Salisbury Plains. That's where we were when we first got to England, and that was right close to what's the name of the oh boy, the big rocks, you know?
Stonehenge.
Stonehenge, that's right. My initials are carved in a rock in Stonehenge. And you know, I went back there after the war was over, and I took my son there, and 2 sons, and I showed him where you could walk in there. You can't get in there now. And I showed him where my initials were. I took them right to the rock. And I had ER right in there. So, in fact, I've got pictures of me outside Stonehenge, you know, somewhere.
So that was on one of your leaves? When you were able to visit Stonehenge?
After the war was over.
Oh, it was after the war that you went there?
Oh, yeah, I'd been there before. I didn't go back there again. No.
And so in England you were posted to transportation?
In England, I was in transport, yes.
You were in transport?
Yes. I was also a tank driver in England, too.
So not just functioning in the role of a teacher, then you were...
No. I was
being trained as a driver.
I was a driver, tank driver. And we used to go on schemes, and I always remember this one thing, is we were on a scheme and we were going down through one of the towns, and I was driving a Churchill tank, and the crew commanders looked and he saw this bar and he says, boy, this would be nice if we weren't on a scheme, if we could stop here. I said, do you want me to make it look good that we can stop? He says, you can't do that. You want to watch? Because I was a driver and I knew what to do. I just yanked the lever and pulled it quick and threw a track, and hey.
You went in for a beer.
Or 2 or 3. until they repaired the tank. So,
Do you remember the preparations for Dieppe?
yes, we went to the Isle of Wight and we trained there. Trained in landing and all kinds of things.
So you knew about the raid, you were being trained specifically for the raid.
Yes, we were being, not for Dieppe, but we were trained for landing on a beach. And that is the first place that I ever tasted crab. I was on the beach, and here was this guy boiling hot water on the beach, and I walked by and he picked up this crab and threw it in the pail. I says, "What are you doing?" He says, "Well, you just wait a minute and you'll see." So I tasted crab legs there. That's my first experience.
At what point did you become aware then that the raid on Dieppe was imminent?
Well, in June, because we went from the Isle of Wight and we were in the harbor over at New Haven, still New Haven, and we couldn't go because the weather was too bad. So they sent us, we were out there for 3 or 4 days, 3 days, I think 3 days, waiting, and they called the raid off. And so I went back and I got permission from the Colonel, Andrews, who was killed in Dieppe, but I got permission for him to get married. So my wife and I got married.
Oh, just prior to the raid.
Just prior to we were only married 1 month. We were married on July the 22nd, you see, and we got married in a place called Grantham, Lincolnshire, in the Midlands. That's where most of our relatives were. And my friend Curly Lynch, who I'll get to him after, he was best man. Also another, I had 2 best men, Roy Lincoln, who was still alive in Stettler. He was a prisoner of war at Dieppe. And that's where the wedding took place.
And did your wife manage to find herself a proper wedding gown?
She didn't wear a wedding gown. I've got a picture of her, but it wasn't a wedding. It was a dress, but not a wedding gown.
And was she in the army? Did she?
No. My wife was an artist. She was a commercial artist, and she did artwork, but she went to work in an airplane factory during the war, measuring parts.
Oh, I see. Now, back to Dieppe. What was the objective for the raid?
The objective was to come in and take the town of Dieppe, and it was a raid and that was all. It wasn't anything it wasn't a second front or anything like that. It was, we were only supposed to be there for a few hours for the day.
And what was your specific role to be?
Okay, my specific role, I was driving a Jeep with 4 bunks on the back, and I was to drive in there and pick up the wounded and take them back onto the boat, onto the landing craft.
So tell us then, you
Okay.
were in the boat, and
Yes, I was in the boat. We came into the beach 3 times to land, and we couldn't because the beach was plugged. Can you imagine what would have happened if I'd have drove that beach out onto the
drove the Jeep onto the
beach? I wouldn't be talking to you today. I would have been dead as can be.
Were you on one of the later ships then, trying to get in?
No.
The others landed?
Well, the others had got in ahead of us, yes, and then we were supposed to come in and take any wounded off. So we were there from 5:30 in the morning till 2:30 in the afternoon. And then it got so bad, the planes were bombing us and strafing us and everything like that. So we pulled out at 2:30 in the afternoon. And then we didn't show up in England at Seaford, our base, for 3 days later.
Before we get to what happened to you for 3 days, I want to ask you, how close did you get to the chaos on the beach?
Right there.
You were right there.
Uh-huh.
You weren't able to land.
We couldn't land. We couldn't. They didn't drop the gate to get in there because it was plugged with people and tanks killed, and they said no, don't land. So we tried 3 times to land.
So you were very much aware then of how badly it was going for the other regiments.
That's right. Yeah.
Now, did you see the air battle then raging overhead?
Well, that's when we left. Yes.
It just got too bad. And
You see, we never really had any air cover.
You weren't expecting
No,
such resistance.
no.
Now, what happened to you for 3 days?
They dropped us off in Portsmouth, and then we had to find our way back to Seaford. And in the meantime, my wife had heard on the radio that there was a raid on. She knew right away that I must be in it, you know. So the manager there told her to go down to the station in London, where they were bringing in the wounded and the dead. So she went down there. She was there all afternoon, and I didn't show up there. So you know what they said to her? They said, he's either killed or taken prisoner. Because there was over 1,000 Canadians killed that day, over 2,000 taken prisoner.
How many of your regiment were eventually evacuated back?
How many of
Of the 14th.
well,
Canadian
I
Armoured.
can't tell you exactly how many from the regiment, but I know from our squadron I was one of 110, and there was only 20 of us got back, which we have a picture of here. So they told her I was either killed or taken prisoner, and then I showed up 3 days later.
I imagine that was a joyful reunion.
It was a fantastic reunion.
Your morale must have been pretty low at that point.
I can't say it was. I felt real good that I was back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lucky to have made it out of
You
there.
see, there's something, I never ever thought of morale. You didn't think of those things those days. You didn't go down in the dumps or anything like that. Well, it's happened, you know. When you see people being killed around you, you get used to it.
That's something, isn't it?
It is. When I think of it now, it's a tragedy, you know. But in those days, you didn't think of it because you were used to it, you know. You could be, you know, with somebody, they get shot, and you don't get shot, so you think yourself lucky.
You just carry on.
You carry on and do what you're supposed to do.
Do you recall what the repercussions were after the disaster at Dieppe?
When you say repercussions, what do you mean by that?
Maybe the political repercussions.
Don't know. That was
You weren't aware of any of that?
no,
at that time?
because they didn't say anything to us about her.
That only
we
came
just-
out much later.
Yes, I mean, we just went on with what we were supposed to do. We went back into training again, getting ready for something else.
And you went back to Seaford.
Yes, Seaford, and we were there for a while, and I was appointed a corporal there, and I was a sergeant. And then we went to Scotland and prepared for going. We didn't know we were going to Sicily and Italy. We knew we were going to go somewhere, but we prepared. And then when I was in Scotland, I got permission to go see my wife, who was in hospital having my first child. So I saw him for 1 day. Yeah, and he was born in 1943. We call him the Dieppe baby.
Is that right?
Yeah.
What month was he born?
He was born in June.
June of 1943.
Yeah.
Or was it June of 1944? No, June of 1943, of course. So in Scotland, you picked up your Sherman tanks.
That's right, and we got them, we waterproofed them and everything like that and got ready. And in Scotland, one thing I always remember where we were at, we were in Langholm in Scotland. And that was right on the border of between Britain and Scotland. And I always remember on Sundays, the bars in Scotland's closed, but the bars in Britain were open, so we used to go over there to have a drink.
That was a big part of daily life in the UK, wasn't it?
Oh, yes.
And so at what point did you learn about heading to Sicily?
When we were on the boat. We didn't know where we were going. All we knew, we were going somewhere. And you know that before we went to where we were going, you know, we had a British officer come to see us, and he said, if you ever run into a German Tiger tank, there's only one thing that'll stop it, the Atlantic Ocean. And how true it was. That's what killed my best friend, my best man.
Tell us about your landing in Sicily.
Landing in Sicily? Okay. First we went to Algiers in Africa. We just went into the port, and from there we went to Syracuse in Sicily. But before we landed, I was in a boat at the time, a troop ship. I wasn't in a tank landing craft. And the sea was rough. The Germans were bombing us.
One of the ships went down with a lot of the equipment, did it not?
I don't know, but I think so. But anyway, so to get to shore, with the sea being so rough, the boat was going from side to side, and we had to go down the ropes on the boat and jump into a small boat that was down below. Now, being from Rumsey, I never learned how to swim. Now, that was the only time I was really scared. Climbing down those ropes, and I thought to myself, I'm never going to see my son or my wife again, because sure as hell I'm going to drown. So I shut my eyes, I had all my gear on and everything, and I jumped and I hit the boat. So we went into shore, and guess who was there to greet us? A little Italian was playing a violin, and he was singing God Save the King as we marched along.
That must have been quite a feeling.
It was, but that's an awful feeling climbing down those ropes, especially when you're getting bombed and the sea is rough.
Did anybody drown?
Not that I know of. Everybody seemed to jump okay. They could swim. There were some that hit the water, but they could swim. I couldn't swim.
Now, what was the role of the 14th Armored?
We were in Sicily. We were a backup role. We didn't do any fighting really. We were a backup.
For the 1st Canadian Infantry Division?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Were there any other memorable events that occurred during your time in Sicily?
Well, Montgomery used to come and get us up and call us at 5 o'clock in the morning, stand on his Jeep, put his hand like this, and that means gather around. And he would tell us what was going on. That's General Montgomery.
Every morning?
Yeah. Well, not every morning, but most mornings, 5 o'clock in the morning. Yeah.
Did the men respect him?
Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, when you crossed the Straits of Messina, going into the boot of Italy, what situation did you find yourself in?
Well, we went across Messina into Reggio di Calabria. Now, The Calgary Tank Regiment was the first regiment into Canadian regiment. First troops, we were the first troops into Italy. And then we did 50 miles a day until they stopped us because we were getting too far with in between communications and supplies. And they made us stop.
Do you remember where you stopped?
About 150 miles up there. I don't know where it was.
Now, what was your first clash with the enemy? Do you remember?
I think it was up near close to Motto. Yeah.
And is this about the same time that you lost your best friend?
Yes, and that was October 1st, 1943. I happen to remember that.
What were the circumstances around that?
He got hit by a Tiger tank, and he was in the tank. He was a crew commander of one of the troop of one of the tanks, the troops. Yeah.
Were you in the same tank with him?
No, I wasn't. I wasn't. I was a transport, but I was. Don't forget, when we were in the transport and I was transport, I was always up in the front with them. You see, making sure they had supplies and everything was done right. Yeah.
So the trucks were right up alongside the tanks?
Well, not alongside, but they were just a little ways away. But I was right close by, and I helped pull them out of the tank.
That must have affected you at the time?
It did, very much. But it was one of those things that happened, and the Padre says, I'll look after it from here on. Because they took over. And I never knew up until just, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago where he was buried. And he's buried in Barrie, in Italy. Yeah.
Now, as you moved up the boot, you
Up
hit
the
Sangro River and then the Morrow River.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember working in cooperation with the 8th Indian Division?
Yes, I do. We were with the Gurkhas too. And they were fantastic to have around us because we felt so safe and good.
And were you in contact then with a lot of the other Allied nations?
Not that I know of.
But the Indian troops helped with the engineering of the bridges and so
Oh
forth?
yes, definitely, yeah. Mm-hmm. And we had the Sikhs with us because I can always remember in the cold, chilly mornings in the mountains, you know, in the Apennines, here they would be stripped and washing every day in the water. And we thought, my God, you guys are nuts. But being Sikhs, that was there.
That was the custom.
Yep.
Tell me about the struggle at the Morrow River.
I don't...
Were you wounded there?
Not
were
at
you
the Morrow.
wounded?
No, I was wounded outside Ortona. Not far from Ortona. That's where I got wounded. I got hit in the leg with shrapnel. The shrapnel went right into my leg, right into the bone. I pulled it out, and we had first aid kits on us. I wrapped my leg, and I didn't go until my leg started swelling 3 days later, and then I went to the MO, and he gave me hell for not coming, but he gave me, beforehand, he gave me an injection, and it went down. But my leg has always been swelled up ever since, and it's bothered me ever since.
Were you taken out of the line at that
Nope.
time?
No, I never left the regiment once, except on leave.
Now, your regiment wasn't involved directly in the Battle of Ortona, but you were telling me you had your own Christmas dinner.
Yes, we had it, and we had it in a station, in a depot.
South of Ortona.
I guess it was outside Ortona anyway. Yeah.
And do you remember what was served there?
You know, I don't, but it was a good dinner.
And you were serving.
And we were serving because all the sergeants and officers had to serve. And I got issued a bottle of whiskey, all the sergeants, and we drank it too.
I bet you did. So at what point then did the 1st Canadian Armoured Brigade separate from the Canadians and move to the Leary Valley with the British?
I can't tell you that.
At some point you found yourself over on the other side in the Leary Valley.
Mm-hmm.
And that would have been just prior to the crossing of the Garry River.
The Garry River, now don't forget the Garry River was just outside of Monte Cassino.
Just south, so that was the defensive barrier right,
Yes.
right at the mouth of the valley.
That's right, and that was now that's where the Kingsmill Bridge was put across. They took the turret off the top of a tank, and one of the guys drove the tank into the water and pushed the bridge across, so there was another tank behind pushing the bridge, and that's how we got across.
Did you witness that?
I was there.
You were right there.
Oh, yeah.
Did you have a role to play on that day?
Just to make sure everybody had gas and supplies and ammunition.
So did you know Tony Kingsmill then?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, I knew him because he was one of a attached. He was with an engineering firm, yeah.
With Light Aid Detachment.
That's right. And do you know that I went back there in 1969 and I looked for the river and it wasn't there.
It had dried up?
Hey, I couldn't figure out. I must be wrong, you know? So I asked some Italians and I said to them, Dove le acqua? See, I picked up enough Italian to get by with. In fact, I can speak a bit of it now too, yes.
Oh,
You know,
wonderful.
so, and I can say to you, voi molto bella.
Grazie.
So, anyway, we went back then, it was dried up. It dries up in the summertime. And can you imagine the guy jumped out of the tank and had to swim to shore? So it was deep.
You know, there had been 3 other attempts to cross the Garry River with devastating consequences. Were you aware of that when the Canadians came in and were tasked with getting across the river? Were you aware of the tremendous casualties that had taken place prior to
We
that?
were, that was the Poles had the casualties because they tried to take Monte Cassino beforehand, you see. But then the Allies got permission from the Pope to bomb it if they would rebuild it. So they rebuilt it. And now there's a big, and when we were going up the hill, the Poles came in and actually took that because the Germans had complete control of that whole valley.
So the Poles took the mountain on the 18th, so that was after the crossing of the Garry River.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a devastating battle? Do you remember it being traumatic?
It wasn't that traumatic, but it was traumatic beforehand because the Poles lost a lot of people there. And the cemetery has got to be seen because it's got a big cross made out of trees at the back, and it's all Poles that are buried there. And down below is a big cemetery where a lot of Canadians are buried. And when we went back in 1969 to see it, we left my wife and a friend of mine and up at the Monte Cassino to go in and look at the church or whatever, the casino. And we went back down to find names of people that I knew so I could take it back to Canada and tell them where they were buried and things like that. So when we went back up on top to pick up the 2 girls, they were still standing outside. So we said, what are you doing out here? You're supposed to go inside. They won't let us in. Why won't they let us in? Because they were wearing slacks. And to go in there, you had to have a dress.
That's something.
Yeah.
Did you see the Abbey in 1944?
No. It was bombed.
You didn't go up to the ruins afterwards?
No.
After the breakthrough of the Gustav Line, the 14th Canadian Armoured Regiment was sent to Aquino on a diversionary attack while the 5th Armoured crossed the Melfa River. Do you remember Aquino or Rocasica?
No, I don't.
I don't think there was a lot of action there. What about Lake Trasimene? Do you remember?
I've heard of Lake Yosemite, but I don't remember it really.
That was on the way up, and then the regiment went toward Florence.
Yeah, well, you see, don't forget, we were up in the mountains for a long time, in the Apennines. And we were going uphill all the time. There was no downhill for us. It's always uphill. The Germans had the advantage all the time.
And were you still attached to the British at that point?
In certain cases, yes.
You were also attached to the Americans.
Yes, we were. We were with the American Army, too. Yeah. Except when the only thing is when we saw an American plane, we hit the dirt. Because just as sure as hell they'd strafe us.
You didn't trust them.
No, I remember coming up the Adriatic on the side, you know, and there were German planes were flying alongside, you know, on the ocean part. They weren't shooting at us. And then we saw an American plane coming, and we hit the dirt. It started strafing us. Can you imagine that?
What did you think of the American troops on the ground?
We never had much to do with them.
You didn't, eh?
No.
So the breakthrough of the Gothic Line is known as Canada's finest action during the Italian campaign. Do you remember how your regiment was involved in the breakthrough?
It was just normal, everyday action.
Nothing remarkable.
Nothing really, no. It's, you know, we lost people, tanks got blown up, and we kept on going. That was our job.
There's a town named Chironi
Chironi, no, I don't know.
listed in the battle honors, but nothing comes to mind. Did you ever encounter any Italian partisans?
No. Mm-mm. No.
Many soldiers were psychologically overwhelmed by the battles in the Italian campaign. Did you have that experience, or do you remember colleagues with battle fatigue?
The odd one, yes, but no. I don't know, we were just doing our job, and we wanted to get the war over with. Go home.
Well, did you ever feel like it was never going to end?
Never thought about it, no. Never.
You were in action a long time, right?
Yes,
From the beginning.
right from beginning to the end.
Dieppe
Yeah,
and you just kept looking forward.
that's right.
At what point then did you return to Europe?
In 1945.
And that was when the regiment left from Leghorn.
Yeah, we got 100 miles north of Florence, Firenze. We got 100 miles north of there, and then we got word that we were leaving Italy, and we even saw the Leaning Tower of Pisa.
There was a story there about having to go downhill with your tanks in the ice.
In the ice?
When it was sheer ice?
Icy, yes.
Do you remember that?
No.
The circumstances there?
Because it was always, that was in the mountains when we were in the Apennines. And it was always muddy and icy, and we slept on the ground all the time. Yeah, we had good backs.
Yeah, you must have. So you got into the port of Marseille, and then you traveled northward to Belgium.
Yes, we got into Belgium, and my friend Johnny Davis and I, we got into Dottignies, and we picked out a place where we were to billet, you know. We picked out other places for other people too in our regiment, you know. And we decided we'd stay in this drugstore. And we had the sergeant's mess was just right close by. So we moved in. They gave us a room in the drugstore, and they invited us for supper every night there. Instead of going to the mess, we'd go there. And we had supper, and that's where I tasted my first horse meat. And it was good. I never knew it was horse meat. It was good, real good. And then after we got through with dinner, being a drugstore, they had access to alcohol. So they bring us a glass of alcohol and a little vial with different types of drinks in it. So we always had an after-dinner drink.
The people were very hospitable.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. And they wrote me and everything when I came back to Canada. Yeah.
You stayed in touch.
But I couldn't write them because they wrote in French to me, and well, it was French, I guess, or Belgium or something. And I couldn't understand a word they said, and I couldn't understand the way so I couldn't write them back. And I often wanted to go back there and see, because I remember there was 4 girls there. The oldest one was, I think, 15 or 16, and so, that was, 60-some years ago. So she must be in her late 70s.
And they might still be there.
They might still be there in the drugstore.
But you never got back.
I never went there. Never got back. So many times I wanted to go back there, and I didn't, because we made so many trips over to England and places like that, and even to Dieppe.
Oh, you did go back and see the beaches there.
Oh, we went back there 4 or 5 times. Yeah, different anniversaries, yeah. And even when there wasn't one, we went back there.
Now going back to Belgium, from Belgium your unit went on to Holland.
We went there, yes. We left in the first part of April, and we went into Holland, into Nijmegen, and then we were in on the liberation we only had we lost one man in our regiment. That's all we lost in Holland. And we wound up in the Reichswald Forest in Germany when the war was over.
What are your memories of Holland and the Dutch people?
Fantastic. If anybody ever wants to go to Holland, make sure you wear a maple leaf.
The grateful Dutch.
And they all speak English. That was the nice part.
And so you were in the Reichswald Forest then when the war ended?
That's right, that's in Germany.
And you were able to make it safely back to England?
Yes.
To your war bride?
Well, when I was in Belgium, I got leave to go to England. We all got leave when we first got to Belgium for, several days. And I showed up on the doorstep of my wife's house. And it was so funny. I hadn't seen my son. He was only a day old, And it was at nighttime. And she never knew I was coming or anything. But anyway, I went up into the bedroom, and he was on the bed, and he took one look at me, and he ran and hid underneath the covers.
Is that right? So it had been a year and a half later, maybe? How many?
No, it would have been close to 2 years.
2 years later.
Yeah.
Imagine that day.
Yeah.
You didn't have leave the whole time you were in Italy. The first leave you had.
No. We had a couple of leaves, one to Rome and one to Florence. In Florence.
But yeah. Once you were in Belgium, it was the first time you were able to go back and see your family.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
So what was the worst day of the war for you then?
The worst day, I would say, it's coming down that ship in Italy, in Sicily.
That was when you were truly frightened.
That's right. And the rest of the time, no. There was lots of times, like I got wounded, It was just a normal thing, But it never bothered me any.
So you brought your war bride back to Canada with you?
No, she came ahead of me. She got here in June of 1945 because I wrote her a letter, and I knew after the war was over that we were going to go back. So I said, you better make preparations. So she did, and she left and she got into Rumsey in June. Can you imagine her coming from London to a place called Rumsey on a farm? But I told her exactly what it was like, so it was nothing new. And then I showed up in September, the end of September.
How did she do as an immigrant in Canada? Did
Fine.
she adapt well?
Very well. And you know, my son and her went to the farm and for a, like a tea party in an afternoon. And they were with all these people, farm ladies and everything. And it started to rain and thunder. And you know what my son did? He heard it thunder and he ran and hid under a table. And they couldn't figure out what was wrong with him till she told him what it was. He figured it was bombs. You see, he was only 2 years old. And when he heard thunder, he figured it was bombs. And in London, they had used to go into an underground when they used to start bombing him. And they would go in the backyard and down into a shelter.
So they'd had an equally difficult time of it on the home front.
Yes.
As
Oh,
you had
definitely.
in Italy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I guess it took the whole family a while to recover from
That's
the
right.
trauma.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
How would you describe the experience of war to young people today who've never been on a battlefield?
Don't get into it. Because it's sheer hell. And today, if you're not used to anything like that, I don't know. When I was there, it would just seemed it came naturally, to be into it. But it's nothing, because today, war is a different thing. You don't know who you're fighting against. I could be sitting here talking to you and you walk up to me and blow yourself up in front of me. But there, at least we knew we had an enemy. And we knew who we were fighting against. But now you don't. Because there's so many terrorists and people that their thoughts are, I don't know what they are, they're mixed up.
Yeah, it's a different world, isn't it?
That sure is.
Well, Elly, thank you very much for
Okay.
sharing your
I
experiences
hope
with us.
I've given you enough information.
It was great.
Yeah.
Thank you.